Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today we are going to discuss media regulations theory, which is Sonia Livingstone and Peter Lunt's theory. I have checked many papers in which students have missed this theory, which I think it's a very key theory for solving the media regulations question. And for most of the questions, when you're talking about the social media, when you're talking about the content being regulated in the new media age, or what you call it as a Web 2.0, this theory has to be over there. So it's really important theory. So I would suggest take out your notebooks and your pen and take the notes. Okay. So, Sonia Livingstone and Peter Lunt, they developed a theory of media regulation, and they examined how media regulators must strike a balance between two important but sometimes conflicting role of the audiences as citizens and as consumers. Um, I know it in the beginning it seems like a little bit of confusion that audiences are the citizens and audiences are the consumers, but there is a difference. We are going to see it very soon. They argue that traditional models of regulations are becoming increasingly difficult to apply in the digital media landscape where user generated content, algorithms, and global platforms dominate. So let's go further and first see what's the difference between the two roles of the audiences. So Livingstone and Lunt, basically what they do is they separate the audiences into the two roles. As citizen, so what do we mean by a citizen? As citizen, they need to be protected from the content. They need to themselves to be represented. They need their public interest to be served. The content there should be over there should be helpful, should be good for the society. But as consumers, audiences seek entertainment. They want the choice. They want the affordability. They want their personal freedom in the media as well. And when they're consuming the media, they want at cheapest rate. They want things at the click of their button, and things should be available. There should be no stopping thing, anything between them and the content available. So these are something which overlap the interest of the audiences. But what we have to do is, when we think about the media regulator, we have to think like how two roles can be balanced. Okay. So let's clarify further with this example. Like for example, as a consumer, when you're consuming the content, you're just scrolling through your maybe phone, and you're using the maybe TikTok or maybe YouTube or maybe Instagram. So what you want is freedom. You want track videos, you want to see maybe all sort of content which is available over there, people made content, which is basically the prosumer content. You want to watch that. You don't want most of the content to be filtered by anything. But on the other end, what's happening is, you also, a part of you is also thinking about like what's happening in the society, or maybe you care about your younger sibling, or maybe the younger people or the next generation. You're thinking about like they are going to be the one who are going to get the harmful effect. So it's sort of like the thing that you think that you as a consumer want a lot of things, but as a citizen, the society needs to be protected. The younger people needs to be protected, or maybe you watch something in which there is some racism, some racist joke or anything. So what happens is, you want the other races to be protected. So this is sort of like something which is two-sided thing within the audiences as consumers, their role as the consumers and their roles as a citizen. Okay, so so what happened that this becomes actually a challenge for the regulatory bodies, like how to allow freedom and how to allow the fun, how to give them the leverage of consuming things, everything available. But on the other end, it should be something which should be the content which should be regulated, and it should be something which should be protecting the audiences. So this is actually the challenge of the what Livingstone and Peter talk about in their theory. So these are the key challenges. Livingstone and Peter Lunt emphasize that Regulation today has become more complex because the content flows freely across global platform, and it goes actually not just globally, it flows between the platform. This is actually what technological convergence do. So we have the technologically converged devices, the media platform on these technological converged devices are also converged. Like for example, think about like how easy it has become now to share a Facebook video on the Instagram, or Instagram video on WhatsApp. So you just press the send button or share button, and there is a lot of platforms which are open over there, and you can share it over. So it's not just the global distribution; it is also across distribution, across multiple media platform distribution. So algorithms decide what users see. The content which you're getting, like most of the time when you're entered into that what we call as a doom scrolling mode. So the type of content you're getting is being suggested by the artificial intelligence. It's the AI which is suggesting the content, and it's not in your control most of the times. It's being controlled by those algorithms. Those algorithms are once again not designed by us. They are working on their own. They have a brain of their own, but at the same time, those algorithms are written by the people who maybe you want a different type of algorithm for your citizens to be protected, and that AI algorithm is not compatible with your society. So it's algorithm which is deciding like what is being shown, and it's not transparent. What do you mean by transparent? Like we don't know the working of the algorithm, how they're working. Okay. And on the other end, what happened is users have become now the prosumers. As you know, the prosumer word is being used by a lot of theorists these days, especially Clay Shirky, he used it a lot. But originally, this term is from Alvin Toffler. So he talked about like when you mix producer plus consumer, so it becomes a prosumer. So what happens when your users are now the producers plus consumers, they become the prosumers, and there is a lot of content over there, and which needs now to be regulated because it's not coming from the center. Um, Previously what happened like in the traditional before the social media or before the web 2.0 or web or what you call as the new media, there were actually data centers through which the content was coming. Like for example, if there is a television station and it's giving you some content, it was easier to regulate because you knew that the content is coming from this station, and you know the center where it's coming from, who's the producer, who's the director, who wrote the content, and who distributed it. Everything was transparent. Now when the audiences are making the content, it's a prosumer made content. What happening actually is that you don't know the center from where the data is, because it's getting shared before we get it or anyone gets it. It has already been shared maybe millions of times across the globe. So it's really hard to track down the original person who created that content, the origin of that content. It becomes really difficult to track it down. So it's sort of like a decentralized situation. And as Clay Shirky calls it, that the audiences have now become the networks. They're not just the consumers, they're networks, because when they get the content, they spread it. So the situation is really complicating, and it's actually the responsibility becomes complicated over here as well. So the older regulation for broadcasters such as like BBC and ITV, they didn't have, like for example, you have like in Pakistan you have PTV. So you know at that time it was easier to regulate, but not anymore. So you don't have the exact data centers now. So what solution do they suggest? So Livingstone and Peter Learn, they don't offer any strict rules, but they propose a new framework for adaptive regulation. So what is adaptive regulation? So adaptive regulation means there should be flexible regulators. Like for example, the bodies like Ofcom, which works in UK, and they control the broadcast content. By the way, you should look at Ofcom's new responsibility of controlling the online media of 2024 as well. Please do search that, because the responsibilities has been different since the last year. Okay, so bodies like Ofcom must evolve to tackle the digital content and algorithms. So the algorithm should be transparent, and they should also be regulated. So this is need of the time. The algorithm which are suggesting you the content, they should be regulated. Okay, and there should be the co-regulations and self-regulation. What do you mean by co-regulations? You should make the audiences public as a party of regulating the content. So when the audiences are in their citizen role, remember, we talked about two roles of citizen as consumers and citizens. When we're in their citizens role, we should think about like what they want, and we should engage them for this purpose as well. Okay, and this should be something which should be done like under the public sphere or the public oversight. They should regulate, but under the public oversight. And there should be public participation in this, as we were talking about. The citizen and the civil groups should be involved in setting the ethical standards for the society. It's different for every society. Like, for example, a thing which is normal for one society might not be normal for another society because of their cultural, religious differences. Okay, and another solution which they provide is the media literacy. Media literacy is like being literate about like what media does. Instead of like, for example, if there is propaganda, if there is a lot of fake news and stuff, if the audiences are media literate, so they can themselves differentiate like what's right and what's wrong. And they can what they can do is they can critically themselves navigate the content. They can just think about like the audience reception theory. They can when they're media literate, they can know that what content they should be having the preferred reading, for what content they should have the negotiated reading, or for what content they should have the oppositional reading in which they reject the content. So the audience reception theory by Stuart Hall. Okay. So the goal is to balance. Finally, the goal is to balance the freedom of expression with the freedom of choice. So when we talk about freedom of choice and freedom of expression, we are actually talking about the audience's two roles as citizen and as the consumers. Okay, and let's conclude it. So Livingstone and Lunt, they help us understand how media regulation is no longer just about banning and allowing content like the way it was done before, just censoring the content, or like the way BBFC does. BBFC, British Board of Film Classification, they classify the content according to age. By the way, BBFC itself is very updated. They keep on doing the surveys and stuff, but still they're not regulating the online content. So they're just more concerned about the films and television shows which are submitted to them by Netflix or by the streaming platform to regulate. But most of the films, or almost all of the films which go into the UK cinemas, they are regulated by BBFC, but not the online content. So for the online content, yet regulations is far much behind for every country. It's about like the technology grew fast. It went from from one stage to another really fast. Even if you think about like the theory of Robert K. Logan in 2010, he said that the electronic age, as defined by Marshall McLuhan once, is itself divided into two parts now. One is the electronic age, in which there was like television and broadcast and stuff like DVDs and those things for distributing the content, and we have moved really fast from that electronic to the digital age. And now from digital age, we're moving into the artificial intelligence age. We already have the AI over here, almost in everything. Even the regulation AI is over there. Okay, so we need to go for the balance. We need to go for the media literacy. We need to educate the audiences. We need to go for the self-regulation of the content, and that is the only solution. What Sonia Livingstone and Peter Lunt say, that we can't stop the audiences from consuming the content. We need to provide them the content. We need to give them the choice, and the hard and fast rules of regulations, they can't really work anymore. Like, for example, when you used to just cut the content and do that, like the strict media gateways, because that's going to curb the audience's choice on a very massive level. And the fine line, finding the balance between these two things is really, really difficult. So you can use this theory when discussing regulation, platform responsibility, when you're discussing the harmful content, how it's spread across the social media or maybe the online YouTube, etc. So when you're talking about the audience empowerment, like how they should be empowered to regulate the content themselves, they should work in close proximity with the regulatory bodies. Now they should be the people as a citizen role. They should be the part of the regulatory authorities, or maybe when making the policies. Okay, so good luck. Thank you very much.